Daddy, why is Mama putting her clothes in boxes? 7-year-old Victor's voice cut through Michael Laszlo like shattered glass. From the marble staircase, he watched his son clutch his twin sister Victoria's hand as they peered through the master bedroom doorway. Inside, Ilsa methodically folded designer dresses into Louis Vuitton suitcases while her phone buzzed with text after text. She's going on a trip, sweetheart, Michael managed, his voice hollow as the empire he'd built with his bare hands. With Uncle Derek? Victoria asked innocently. Uncle Derek, Michael's business partner. His best friend since college. The man who'd been sleeping with his wife for 8 months while systematically draining every account, liquidating every asset, and transferring ownership of Laszlo Industries to shell companies that led straight back to Derek Thompson's offshore holdings. The prenup that should have protected him was worthless. Ilsa had never signed the real one. The document in his safe was a forgery, perfectly crafted, legally meaningless. Every lawyer, every financial advisor, every person he'd trusted had been bought, threatened, or fooled. Michael. Ilsa's voice held no warmth, no regret. She appeared in the doorway, her blonde hair swept into the kind of perfect chignon that had graced magazine covers when they'd been America's golden couple. The children should pack. We're leaving tonight. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. Her smile was ice. Derek's lawyers have already filed. Fraud charges. Embezzlement. Tax evasion. You'll be lucky if prison is your only problem. The federal agents would arrive in 3 hours. Michael didn't know this yet, but Ilsa did. Derek had timed everything perfectly. The evidence had been planted over months, financial records altered, testimonies purchased. Michael's signature had been forged on documents he'd never seen, creating a paper trail that painted him as the mastermind of his own destruction. The children stay with me, Michael said. The children stay with their mother. In Switzerland, where Derek has citizenship and you have nothing. Victor started crying. Victoria tried to comfort him, her small hands patting his shoulders the way she'd seen adults do. Neither child understood that their world was ending, that the father they adored was about to lose everything that defined him. Mr. Michael. The voice came from the kitchen doorway. Kay Miller stepped into view, her deep brown eyes taking in the scene with quiet assessment. At 4 to 5, she moved with the careful grace of someone who'd learned to be invisible in plain sight. She'd worked for the Laszlo family for 5 years, arriving each morning at 6 and leaving after dinner, caring for the twins when their parents traveled, which was often. Kay, you should go home, Michael said. I'll call you when. With respect, sir, someone needs to think about these babies right now. Ilsa laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. The help thinks she has opinions. Kay's expression never changed, but something shifted in her posture. She'd cleaned up after Ilsa's affairs before, lipstick stains on shirt collars that didn't belong to Michael, jewelry receipts for gifts he'd never given, hotel keychains from cities he'd never visited. She'd kept silent, as expected, as required. But this was different. Victoria, Kay said gently. Why don't we go make hot chocolate while the grown-ups talk? I want Daddy to come, Victor sniffled. Daddy will come, Kay assured him, her eyes meeting Michael's. Won't you, Mr. Michael? There was something in her tone, something that made him look at her more carefully. Kay had been more than a maid. She had a master's degree in child psychology, spoke 3 languages, and had references from families whose names appeared on Forbes lists. But she'd needed work fast when her husband died, and asking questions about overqualification wasn't Michael's style. Now he wondered what else he'd never asked. 5 minutes, Ilsa said. Then we're leaving. She disappeared back into the bedroom. Michael heard Derek's voice on speakerphone, discussing flight plans and account transfers. They thought they'd won. Mr. Michael, Kay said quietly, so the children couldn't hear. You need to listen very carefully. In exactly 22 minutes, federal agents will arrest you. They have a warrant. The charges are false, but the evidence is real enough to destroy you. Michael stared at her. How do you? Questions later. Right now, you have a choice. Run and look guilty, or stay and let them take everything, including your children. There's no third option. Kay's smile was small but fierce. There's always a third option, Mr. Michael. Trust me. Hey, my friend, hope you're doing well. Drop a comment and let me know how you're feeling about this story so far and where you are watching from. Some stories are too close to my heart to share on YouTube. I send those, along with little life lessons and surprises, to my email circle. If you'd like to be part of it, you can join with the link in the description. The sound of car doors slamming echoed from the driveway. Not the agents, They were still 17 minutes away. This was Derek, arriving to witness Michael's final humiliation in person. "Daddy." Victoria tugged on his sleeve. "Are you scared?" Michael knelt down, eye level with his daughter. Behind her innocent question lay the truth he'd been avoiding. He was terrified. Not of losing money or status or power. Those were just things. He was terrified of losing them. Of failing as their father the way he'd apparently failed at everything else. "A little," he admitted. "When I'm scared, Kay tells me stories about brave people," Victor offered. "She says everyone gets to be brave, but first they have to be scared." Michael looked up at Kay, who was watching the twins with an expression he'd never seen before. Protective, fierce, almost maternal. How had he never noticed that she loved his children? "What kind of stories?" he asked. "Stories about people who lost everything but found something better," Kay said. "Stories about families that chose each other instead of being born to each other. Stories about starting over with nothing but love and determination." Derek's laugh boomed from the front hall. "Michael, come say goodbye to your old life." Michael stood slowly. He could hear Ilsa's heels clicking against marble as she descended the stairs with her suitcases. In 16 minutes, everything would change forever. But looking at Kay, really looking at her for the first time, he realized something had already changed. For 5 years, he'd employed her. Tonight, she was offering to save him. "The third option," he said quietly. "What is it?" Kay's eyes held secrets, strength, and something that looked remarkably like hope. "You disappear, Mr. Michael. All 3 of you. Tonight. And when you're ready to rebuild, I'll show you how to do it right this time." Michael heard Derek's footsteps approaching the kitchen. Decision time. He could face the music and lose his children forever, or trust the woman he'd barely noticed with everything he had left. Which, when he thought about it, was absolutely nothing, except Victoria, and the terrifying possibility that Kay Miller was exactly who they needed her to be. "Move." Kay's command was whisper quiet but absolute. She grabbed the twins' hands while Michael stood frozen, Derek's approaching footsteps echoing like a countdown to destruction. "The service elevator," Kay continued, already moving. "Basement garage. Gray Honda Civic, license plate starts with KWM. Keys under the driver's seat." "Kay, I can't just." "You can and you will." She paused at the kitchen's back in trance, her voice dropping even lower. "Mr. Michael, your accountant Robert Harris called me 2 hours ago. The same Robert Harris you fired last month for asking too many questions about Derek's projects." Michael's blood chilled. Robert had discovered discrepancies in the Thompson partnership accounts. Michael had dismissed him, believing Derek's explanations about creative bookkeeping for tax purposes. "Robert's been tracking the money trail since you fired him. Everything Derek stole can be traced, but only if you're alive and free to testify. The federal case against you? It's built on forged documents and purchased testimony. Derek's been planning this for 2 years. The front door slammed. Derek's voice boomed through the house. "Where is everyone? The farewell party can't start without the guest of honor." Kay's hand found Michael's shoulder. "I've been documenting everything. Every late-night meeting Derek had in your study. Every phone call Ilsa made from your bedroom. Every document they thought they shredded but didn't." "You're a maid," Michael said, then immediately hated himself for the words. Kay's smile was sad but not surprised. "I have a master's degree in forensic accounting from Howard University, Mr. Michael. 3 years at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit before my husband got sick. I've been cleaning houses for 5 years because grief makes you do things that feel safe, even when they are not enough." The pieces clicked together. Kay's careful attention to detail. Her knowledge of the family's schedule. The way she'd always seemed to know more than she let on. "You've been investigating us. I've been protecting these children." Kay's voice carried 5 years of watching, waiting, caring. From parents who treated them like accessories and from a situation I could see coming from miles away. Victor tugged on Michael's sleeve. "Daddy, I'm scared of the loud voices." Michael knelt down, his world reforming around this moment. His empire was gone. His wife was leaving with his best friend. Federal agents were coming to arrest him for crimes he didn't commit. But his children needed him, and this woman who'd been invisible in his house for 5 years was offering him a lifeline. "We're going on an adventure," he told the twins. "With Kay." "Like camping?" Victoria asked hopefully. "Exactly like camping." They made it to the service elevator without being seen. As the doors closed, Michael heard Derek's voice growing louder, more impatient. Ilsa's heels clicked across marble, heading toward the garage. They'll check the garage, Michael said. They'll check the 6-car garage where you keep the Bentley and the Tesla, Kay agreed. They won't check the building manager's space where I've been parking for 5 years. The basement was a maze of storage units and mechanical rooms. Kay led them through it like she'd memorized every turn. Which, Michael realized, she probably had. The Honda was exactly where she'd said, keys exactly where she'd promised. As they climbed in, twins in the back, Michael in the passenger seat, he felt the strangest sensation. For the first time in 2 decades, someone else was in control. Where are we going? Somewhere Derek Thompson's money can't reach. Kay started the engine. Above them, they heard shouting. Derek had discovered they were gone. My phone. Leave it. They are tracking everything. Kay handed him a burner phone. Robert Harris's number is programmed in. Call him when we're clear. They drove in silence for 20 minutes, winding through neighborhoods Michael had never seen despite living in the city for 15 years. Kay navigated without GPS, taking turns that seemed random but felt deliberate. Are we criminals now? Victor asked quietly. No, baby, Kay said. We're survivors. Michael stared at her profile. Why are you doing this? Because 5 years ago, I was where you are now. Lost everything to someone I trusted. The difference is, no one helped me start over. I won't let that happen to these children. She pulled into the parking lot of a small motel. The kind of place that took cash and didn't ask questions. Michael had never stayed anywhere that didn't have his name in gold letters on the door. This is temporary, Kay said, reading his expression. 1 night, maybe 2. Until we figure out the next move. Room 127 had 2 double beds, industrial carpet, and the smell of industrial disinfectant. Michael sat on the edge of one bed, holding his head in his hands. The twins explored the bathroom, fascinated by the tiny soap bars and individual coffee packets. I've lost everything, Michael said. You've lost money and property and status, Kay corrected. You haven't lost what matters. I built that company from nothing. 20 years of work. 20 years of building something that could be taken away in 1 day. Kay sat across from him, her voice gentle but firm. Maybe it's time to build something that can't be stolen. Michael's phone, the burner, rang. Kay nodded, and he answered. Michael. Thank God. Robert Harris's voice was rushed, panicked. Listen carefully. The federal case is falling apart, but Derek's not done. He's filed for emergency custody of the twins. Claims you're mentally unstable and financially irresponsible. On what grounds? He has witnesses who'll testify you've been erratic, making poor business decisions, possibly using drugs. Your wife is claiming you threatened her. Michael looked at the twins, who were now building a fort out of pillows and laughing together. How long do we have? The hearing is tomorrow morning. If you're not there to defend yourself, he wins by default. And if I am there? Honestly, with the evidence he's fabricated and the witnesses he's bought, you'll probably lose anyway. But at least you'd have a chance. Michael ended the call and told Kay what Robert had said. She listened without interruption, her expression growing darker. There's something else, she said finally. Something I didn't tell you before. Michael's stomach dropped. What? Derek offered me money. 6 months ago. $50,000 to document your daily routine, your interactions with the children, anything that could be used against you in a custody battle. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Even Kay. Even the one person he'd started to trust. Did you take it? Kay met his eyes. I took the meeting. I let him think I was interested. And then I started documenting everything he and Ilsa were really doing. She pulled a small recording device from her purse. 6 months of conversations, Mr. Michael. Derek discussing the forged documents. Ilsa planning how to hide assets. Both of them talking about taking the children to Switzerland where you'd never see them again. Michael stared at the device. You've been recording them. I've been protecting your children the only way I knew how. Kay's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. Derek thinks I'm his inside source. He's been calling me all evening, asking where you went. I've been buying us time by feeding him false information. What kind of false information? I told him you were headed to your ex-wife's house in Boston. He's probably there by now, which gives us until morning before he realizes I've been lying. Michael looked at the twins, who had fallen asleep in their pillow fort. His daughter's hand was clutched around his son's, the way they'd comforted each other through their parents' increasingly loud fights over the past year. Tomorrow morning, Derek gets custody, he said. Not if we're not there for him to find. You're talking about running. Permanently. Kay was quiet for a long moment. I'm talking about disappearing until we can prove Derek destroyed you. Robert thinks it might take 6 months to unravel all the fake evidence. 6 months of what? Hiding in motels. Living like fugitives. 6 months of being a family, Kay said softly. Real family. The kind that chooses each other. Michael watched his children sleep. In 12 hours, Derek would own everything Michael had built. But maybe Kay was right. Maybe what he'd built could be taken away because it wasn't really his to begin with. Maybe it was time to build something that belonged to him completely. The burner phone rang again. Kay answered this time, her voice taking on a different quality, subservient, careful. Mr. Thompson? Yes, I'm still trying to reach him. Boston? No, sir, I haven't heard anything. Of course, I'll call you the moment I know anything. She hung up and looked at Michael. He's getting suspicious. We have maybe 4 hours before he figures out I've been playing him. And then we find out how far Derek Thompson is willing to go to make sure you never challenge him. As if in answer, the room's window shattered. The rock that shattered the window landed between the twins' sleeping forms. Michael lunged forward, shielding Victor and Victoria as glass fragments scattered across the industrial carpet. Kay was already moving, grabbing their few belongings while scanning the parking lot through the jagged opening. 3 cars, she reported grimly. Not Derek's people. Then who? Local muscle. The kind Derek hires when he needs problems to disappear quietly. Victor stirred, confused. Daddy, what happened? Just a little accident, son. Michael's voice was surprisingly calm as he lifted both children, one in each arm. We're going to play a game. The quiet game. Victoria pressed her face against his shoulder. I don't like this game. I know, sweetheart. But Kay and I are going to keep you safe. Kay peered around the doorframe. Back exit's blocked. Front's our only option, but they are waiting. So we're trapped. No. Kay's expression hardened. We're done running. She pulled out her phone, not the burner, but her real phone, and dialed a number Michael didn't recognize. Ryan. It's Kay Miller. Yes, I know what time it is. I need the favor you owe me, and I need it now. Michael watched her pace the small space, her voice dropping into tones he'd never heard from her before. Professional. Commanding. Dangerous. 3 vehicles, mixed crew, probably armed. Room 127 at the Skylark Motel on Crenshaw. No, not lapped. This needs to be federal. She hung up and met Michael's questioning stare. Ryan Webb. FBI Special Agent. My former partner from the Financial Crimes Unit. You called the FBI. I called in a favor that's been gathering interest for 5 years. Kay moved to the window, staying out of sight while observing their watches. Ryan owes me his career and his marriage. Tonight, he pays that debt. Kay, if the FBI gets involved. The FBI is already involved, Mr. Michael. Derek filed federal charges against you. Remember? The difference is, now we have someone on our side who knows how to fight dirty. A phone rang in the parking lot. One of the men in the cars answered, his voice carrying in the desert-dry night air. Yeah, boss. No, they're still inside. You want us to what? The man's voice changed, became uncertain. Whatever Derek was telling him, he didn't like it. Boss, I signed up for intimidation, not. Yeah, I understand the money. But there are kids in there. Michael felt something cold settle in his stomach. What exactly does Derek want them to do? Kay's expression was grim. Make sure we can't testify. Any of us. The weight of that hit him like a physical blow. Derek wasn't just stealing his money or his company. Derek was willing to hurt children to protect his secret. Why? Michael asked. He already has everything. Why does he need us dead? Because Robert Harris found something, Kay said quietly. Something bigger than just your company. What kind of something? Before Kay could answer, her phone buzzed with a text. She read it and swore under her breath. Ryan is 10 minutes out, but Derek's people just got new orders. They are moving now. The sound of car doors slamming echoed across the parking lot. Multiple sets of footsteps headed toward their room. Michael looked down at his children, who were clinging to him with the instinctive fear of prey animals sensing predators. There has to be another way. There is. Kay was already moving toward the bathroom. But you're not going to like it. She returned with a pillowcase filled with something heavy and metallic. When she opened it, Michael saw tools, not household tools, but professional equipment. Lockpicks. Small electronics. Things that belonged to someone who knew how to break into places and steal information. "Who are you really?" he asked. "Someone who's been preparing for this night for 5 years." Kay began assembling what looked like a small explosive device. "Mr. Michael, I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that?" The footsteps had reached their door. Someone was testing the handle. "Do I have a choice?" "There's always a choice. You can surrender and hope Derek's people are more professional than they seem. You can try to fight them with your bare hands. Or you can let me do what I'm trained to do." A voice outside. "Open up. We just want to talk." Kay finished with her device and moved to the adjoining wall. "This will blow a hole through to the next room. The family that was staying there checked out an hour ago. We'll have maybe 30 seconds before they realize what happened. And then we run like hell and hope Ryan gets here before they catch us." Michael made his decision. "Do it." Kay placed the device against the wall and motioned for them to move to the far corner. "Cover their ears," she instructed. The explosion was smaller than Michael expected but devastatingly effective. A rough circle of wall simply disappeared, leaving a gap large enough for them to crawl through. "Go," Kay ordered. Michael passed the twins through first, then followed. Kay came last, already talking rapidly into her phone. "Ryan, we're mobile. Room 128 now, heading for the back parking area." "Yes, I used explosives in a public place." "No, I don't care about the paperwork." They emerged into the neighboring room just as their original door splintered inward. Shouts erupted from behind them, confusion, anger, orders being barked. The back window of room 128 led to a narrow alley. Kay pushed it open and helped Michael boost the twins through. "This way." She led them down the alley, away from the motel, toward a cluster of 24-hour businesses. A laundromat. A taco stand. A gas station with fluorescent lighting that made everything look sick and desperate. "Kay," Michael panted, carrying both children now. "What did Robert Harris find?" "Derek isn't just stealing from you. He's been using your company as a front for money laundering. Millions of dollars from sources that make federal prosecutors very interested." "What kind of sources?" "The kind that kill people for talking." They reached the gas station just as black SUVs with federal plates pulled into the motel parking lot. Through the windows, they could see Derek's hired muscle being surrounded by FBI agents. Ryan Webb looked exactly like what he was, a federal agent who'd been woken up at midnight and told to clean up a mess. Tall, black, wearing a rumpled suit and an expression that suggested this wasn't his first time rescuing Kay Miller from a dangerous situation. "You look good for someone who's supposedly dead," he told Kay. Death was greatly exaggerated. Kay hugged him briefly, then stepped back. "Ryan, meet Michael Laszlo and his children." Ryan studied Michael with the careful attention of someone trained to read people quickly. "You're the billionaire who supposedly embezzled $50 million. Supposedly being the operative word, Michael said. "Yeah, well, after tonight, supposedly just became definitely not." Ryan gestured toward the motel, where Derek's men were being loaded into federal vehicles. Those gentlemen were very chatty once they realized they were facing federal charges for conspiracy to commit murder. Murder. Derek Thompson's final instruction to them was to eliminate all witnesses to his financial crimes, including 2 7-year-old children. Ryan's expression darkened. That crosses a line even for white-collar criminals. Michael felt the world shift around him. This wasn't about money anymore. This wasn't about business betrayal or marital infidelity. Derek had been willing to kill his children. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we have a problem," Ryan said. "Derek knows his hired help got arrested. He knows you're alive and free. And he knows that whatever evidence Kay's been collecting is about to come to light. So he runs. So he gets desperate." Ryan looked at Kay. "How much evidence do you actually have?" "Enough to destroy him. Financial records, recordings, proof of the money laundering connections. Everything." "And where is this evidence?" Kay smiled for the first time since the window shattered. "Somewhere Derek Thompson will never think to look." She knelt down to Victor and Victoria's level. "Remember those bedtime stories I used to tell you? The ones about treasure maps and secret hiding places?" Both children nodded solemnly. "Well," Kay continued, "it turns out some of those stories were true." Michael stared at her. 4 or 5 years, this woman had been in his house, caring for his children, cleaning up after his family's dysfunction. And all that time, She'd been building a case that would either save him or destroy them all. Derek's going to come after us himself now, Michael said. Yes, Kay agreed. But now we're ready for him. Ryan checked his watch. You've got maybe 6 hours before Derek realizes the full scope of what's happening. After that, all bets are off. 6 hours to do what? Kay looked at Michael, then at the twins, then back at Michael. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of a decision that would change everything. 6 hours to decide if you want your old life back or if you're ready to build something completely new. Michael thought about his mansion, his company, his reputation. Then he looked at his children, who were holding Kay's hands like anchors in a storm, and at Kay herself, who had risked everything to protect people who'd barely noticed her existence. What does building something new look like? It looks like trusting people who've earned it instead of people who inherited it. It looks like family that chooses each other instead of family that just shares DNA. Kay paused, then added quietly, and it looks like falling in love with someone who sees who you really are, not what you own. The words hung in the desert air between them, loaded with implications that Michael was only beginning to understand. Derek Thompson had taken everything he thought he wanted. Maybe it was time to discover what he actually needed. The safe house Ryan provided was a cramped apartment above a Korean barbecue restaurant in Koreatown. The smell of grilled meat and kimchi permeated everything, and the twins wrinkled their noses as they climbed the narrow stairs. It's not the Four Seasons, Ryan said apologetically, but it's invisible. The owner owes me favors, and Derek Thompson's people don't know this neighborhood exists. Michael surveyed the space, 1 bedroom, a fold-out couch, a kitchen the size of a closet. 48 hours ago, he'd owned a house with 12 bedrooms. Now he was grateful for a roof and running water. How long can we stay here? He asked. As long as it takes, Ryan replied, but his expression suggested he hoped it wouldn't be long. Kay was already making the space work, helping the twins unpack their few belongings and creating small comforts from nothing. She found extra blankets, arranged the limited furniture to give everyone privacy, and somehow made the place feel less like a hideout and more like a temporary home. Michael watched her move through the space with quiet efficiency, and felt something he hadn't experienced in years, gratitude mixed with something deeper, more complicated. Mr. Michael, Victor called from the bedroom. Kay says you need to sleep, but there's only 1 bed. The innocence of the question highlighted the complexity of their situation. For 5 years, Kay had been his employee. Now she was his protector, his ally, potentially his savior. The normal social boundaries had evaporated, leaving them in uncharted territory. I'll take the couch, Michael said. You'll take the bed, Kay corrected. You haven't slept in 36 hours, and tomorrow you need to be sharp. What about you? I don't sleep much anyway. She said it casually, but Michael caught the underlying pain. Another piece of the puzzle that was Kay Miller. Ryan received a call and stepped outside. Through the thin walls, they could hear his voice rising, becoming urgent. When he returned, his expression was grim. Derek's filed a missing persons report on the twins. Claims you kidnapped them during a psychotic break. He's got Ilsa on video, crying about how you threatened to hurt them. That's insane. That's calculated. Ryan sat heavily on the fold-out couch. He's making it impossible for you to surface legally. If any law enforcement officer sees you with those kids, they'll arrest you first and ask questions later. Kay emerged from the kitchen with coffee for the adults and hot chocolate for the twins. The normalcy of the gesture, taking care of everyone's needs, struck Michael as both heartbreaking and remarkable. What about the evidence? Michael asked. Can't we prove Derek's lying? We can prove he's a criminal, Kay said. Proving his lying about you might take longer. How much longer? Ryan and Kay exchanged a look that made Michael's stomach drop. Weeks, Ryan admitted. Maybe months. Derek's been planning this for years. Every piece of evidence against you was carefully crafted. Undoing that kind of systematic deception takes time. Months, Michael repeated. Hidden here. Like criminals. Like survivors, Kay corrected, echoing her words from the motel. Victoria appeared in the bedroom doorway, clutching a stuffed elephant. Daddy, I had a bad dream. About Mama. Michael knelt down and pulled his daughter close. What kind of dream? She was far away and couldn't come back. And Uncle Derek was there, but he was scary. Children, Michael had learned, often understood more than adults gave them credit for. Victoria might not grasp the legal complexities, but she sensed the danger Derek represented. Mama's on a trip, he said carefully. But Daddy's here. And Kay's here. And we're all going to take care of each other. Like a family. The question hung in the air. Victor appeared beside his sister, both children looking up at Michael with the kind of trust that could break hearts or heal them. Yes, Michael said finally. Like a family. Kay's phone buzzed. She checked it and her expression darkened. What is it? Ryan asked. Text from Derek. He wants to meet. She showed them the message. Kay, I know you're protecting him. This doesn't have to end badly for anyone. Let's talk. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Griffith Observatory. Come alone, and everyone stays safe. It's a trap, Michael said immediately. Of course it's a trap. Kay's voice was calm, but her hands were steady in a way that suggested years of training. The question is whether it's a trap we can use. Ryan leaned forward. What are you thinking? Derek believes I'm his inside source. He thinks he can buy me or threaten me into betraying Michael. What if we let him keep thinking that? Absolutely not, Michael said. I won't let you put yourself in danger. Kay looked at him with something that might have been amusement. Mr. Michael, I've been in danger for 5 years. I've been documenting a money laundering operation connected to people who kill for significantly less provocation than what we're dealing with now. Then why didn't you leave? Why didn't you take your evidence to the FBI years ago? Kay was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than usual. Because of them. She nodded toward the twins, who were building another blanket fort in the corner. Because Ilsa was planning to take them to Switzerland even before Derek's plan came together. Because Victor has nightmares and Victoria has anxiety, and they needed someone who cared about them more than they cared about social positioning. Michael felt something shift in his chest. You stayed to protect my children. I stayed because they became my children too. The admission hung between them, loaded with implications that went far beyond their current crisis. Michael found himself studying Kay's face, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. The intelligence that had always been there. The strength he'd never noticed. The love she'd been giving his children while he'd been building an empire that could be stolen in a single day. Derek's right about one thing, Ryan said, interrupting the moment. This can't go on indefinitely. Every day you're underground is another day he consolidates his position. What do you suggest? We control the meeting. Make Derek think he's winning while we gather the evidence we need to destroy him completely. Kay stood and moved to the window, looking out at the neon signs and busy street below. There's something else. Something I haven't told you about Derek's operation. Michael felt familiar dread. What? The money he's laundering isn't just going through your company. It's going through other companies too. Companies owned by people who won't appreciate federal attention. What kind of people? The kind who solve problems permanently. Ryan swore under his breath. How much money are we talking about? 50 million through Michael's company was just the beginning. The total operation is closer to 500 million. Maybe more. The number hit Michael like a physical blow. $500 million. Derek hadn't just destroyed his life for personal gain. He'd made Michael an unwitting participant in something massive and deadly. Who else knows about this? Ryan asked. Robert Harris figured out the scope. That's why Derek moved so fast to frame Michael. Robert was getting close to the bigger picture. Where is Robert now? Kay's expression went carefully blank. Missing. Since yesterday morning. The implications sank in slowly. Robert Harris, the accountant who'd tried to warn Michael, who'd been gathering evidence to prove Derek's guilt, was missing. Missing in a way that probably meant dead. Derek killed him, Michael said. Derek had him killed, Kay corrected. Derek doesn't get his hands dirty anymore. Michael looked at his children, still playing in their blanket fort, oblivious to the conversation that was determining their future. Victor was telling Victoria a story about brave knights and kind princesses. Normal childhood fantasy, except their father was a fugitive and their protector was a former FBI agent with evidence that could get them all killed. The meeting tomorrow, Michael said. We use it. How? Kay turned from the window, and Michael saw something in her expression that reminded him she'd once hunted financial criminals for the federal government. We give Derek exactly what he thinks he wants. Me, agreeing to betray you. But we record everything. Get him to confess not just to framing you, but to the entire operation. And if he realizes it's a setup, then we find out how far Derek Thompson is willing to go to protect $500 million. Michael's phone, the burner, rang. Ryan answered, listened for a moment, then hung up with a grim expression. That was my office. Derek Thompson just hired the most expensive legal team in the city. and has called a press conference for tomorrow morning. What kind of press conference? The kind where a grieving business partner announces his desperate search for a missing friend and his friend's kidnapped children. Michael felt the walls closing in. Derek was about to make him the most wanted man in America, painting himself as the hero and Michael as the villain. By tomorrow evening, every law enforcement officer in the country would be looking for Michael Laszlo, the billionaire who'd lost his mind and stolen his own children. "We need Derek's confession," Ryan said. "It's the only way to stop this before it gets completely out of control." Kay nodded. "Then I guess I'm having lunch with Derek Thompson." Michael caught her hand before she could move away. "Kay, this isn't your fight." She looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. When she spoke, her voice carried 5 years of unspoken truths. "Mr. Michael, this became my fight the first time Victor had a nightmare and you weren't there to comfort him. It became my fight the first time Victoria asked me why her parents were always angry with each other. It became my fight the moment I realized I loved your children more than their own mother did." She paused, her hand still in his. "And it became my fight when I realized I was falling in love with you too." The admission left them both speechless. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Inside, two people who'd spent 5 years in the same house without really seeing each other finally understood what they'd been missing. "Kay," Michael started. "Tomorrow," she interrupted gently. "We survive tomorrow, and then we figure out what comes next." But even as she spoke, Michael could see the fear in her eyes. The meeting with Derek wasn't just dangerous, it was potentially suicide. And they all knew it. The pressure was building from every direction now. Derek was about to make Michael a fugitive. The people behind the money laundering operation were probably looking for them. Robert Harris was missing and likely dead. And tomorrow, the woman Michael was just beginning to realize he couldn't live without was going to walk into a trap that might destroy them all. The press conference played on every screen in the Korean restaurant below their hideout. Derek Thompson, impeccably dressed in a navy suit that cost more than most people's cars, stood behind a podium flanked by American flags and spoke with the practiced sincerity of a politician. "My dear friend Michael Laszlo is suffering from a complete psychological break," Derek announced, his voice heavy with manufactured concern. "The pressures of recent financial difficulties have pushed him beyond reason. I'm pleading with him now, if you're watching this, Michael, please bring Victor and Victoria home safely. They need medical attention. They need their mother." Michael muted the volume but couldn't look away. Behind Derek, Ilsa dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, playing the role of devastated mother to perfection. 50 million people just watched that, Ryan said grimly. "By tonight, your face will be on every law enforcement database in the country." Kay stood at the apartment's single window, watching the street below with the careful attention of someone trained to spot surveillance. She'd been quiet since her confession the night before, maintaining professional distance that felt more painful than honest anger. "Any sign of Derek's people?" Michael asked. "Not yet. But they are out there." The meeting was set for 2 p.m. at Griffith Observatory. It was now 11 a.m., and Michael could feel time running out like sand through his fingers. "I still don't like this plan," he said for the 10th time. "Your approval was never part of the equation," Kay replied without turning around. The coldness in her voice stung. Michael had spent the night on the narrow couch, listening to Kay breathe in the next room and wondering if her confession had been real or just another layer of strategy in a game he was only beginning to understand. "Daddy," Victoria appeared at his elbow, holding her stuffed elephant. "Why does the man on TV say bad things about you?" Michael knelt down to his daughter's level. "Sometimes people say things that aren't true, sweetheart." "But why?" "Because they are scared or angry or trying to protect themselves." "Is Kay scared?" Michael looked across the room at Kay, who was now checking her weapon, a compact pistol that Ryan had provided. When had she learned to handle firearms with such casual expertise? "I think everyone's scared right now," he admitted. Victor joined them, his expression more serious than any 7-year-old should wear. "Are you going to prison?" "Not if I can help it." "What about Kay? Is she going away too?" The question hit harder than it should have. Michael realized that losing Kay would devastate the twins almost as much as losing him. She'd become their anchor, their source of comfort and stability. She'd become family in ways that went deeper than blood or legal documents. "I hope not," Michael said honestly. Kay's phone buzzed. She read the message and her face went pale. "What is it?" Ryan asked. "Change of plans. Derek wants to meet at the children's school instead." "What school?" Michael felt ice form in his stomach. "Westfield Academy." where Victor and Victoria go to class. The implications hit like a sledgehammer. Derek wasn't just changing the location, he was making a threat. The twins' school, where they'd felt safe, where they had friends and teachers and routines that belonged to their normal life. He's sending a message, Ryan said grimly. What kind of message? Kay turned from the window, and Michael saw something in her expression that made his blood freeze. Fear, yes, but also guilt. The kind of guilt that came from keeping secrets. There's something I need to tell you, she said quietly. Kay, whatever it is. Derek knows about the twins' schedule at Westfield. He knows which classroom they were in, which teachers they had, which playground equipment they preferred. She paused, her voice dropping. He knows because I told him. The world tilted sideways. What? 6 months ago, when Derek first approached me, I gave him information about the children's routines. I thought it was for custody planning, for when he and Ilsa took them to Switzerland. Michael felt something tear open in his chest. You've been spying on my children for Derek. I was protecting them from parents who treated them like property. Kay's voice rose, defensive and desperate. Derek told me Ilsa was planning to take them away from you completely. He said giving him information about their schedules was the only way to ensure they'd have some stability in their lives. And you believed him. I believed he cared about them more than you did. The words hit like physical blows. Michael stared at Kay, the woman he'd been falling in love with, the woman who'd confessed her feelings just 12 hours earlier, and realized he didn't know her at all. How much? He asked quietly. How much what? How much did Derek pay you? Kay's expression crumbled. It wasn't about money. How much, Kay? $25,000. Spread over 6 months. Ryan swore under his breath. Jesus, Kay. You sold out a family for 25 grand. I sold out parents who ignored their children for a man who promised to give them a better life. Kay's voice was breaking now, tears streaming down her face. Do you know how many nights I stayed late because neither of you bothered to come home for dinner? Do you know how many times these children asked me why their parents didn't love them? Michael felt the accusation like a knife between his ribs because it was true. He'd been building his empire while Kay had been raising his children. He'd been chasing success while she'd been providing the love and stability that Victor and Victoria actually needed. That doesn't justify betraying us, he said. No, Kay agreed. It doesn't. She wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders, and Michael saw the FBI agent she'd once been reasserting itself. But what I learned later does justify everything I've done since. What did you learn? Derek isn't planning to give the children a better life. He's planning to use them as leverage against the people behind the money laundering operation. $500 million, Michael. The kind of money that makes children disappear permanently when they become inconvenient. The apartment fell silent except for the sound of traffic below and the twins playing quietly in the bedroom. You're saying Derek's going to kill them? Michael asked. I'm saying Derek's going to sell them to people who kill children to send messages. Ryan stood abruptly, his face dark with fury. Kay, if you've known this for months. I've known for 3 weeks. Since I broke into Derek's office and found the real files. She pulled a flash drive from her pocket. Everything's on here. The money laundering operation. The names of the people involved. The plans for the children. Michael stared at the small device. Why didn't you tell me? Because telling you would have gotten you killed faster. Derek's been monitoring your communications, your movements, everything. The only way to protect you was to make him think I was still on his side. Until last night. Until last night, when I realized I couldn't keep lying to you about how I felt. The admission hung between them, complicated by betrayal and desperation and the impossible circumstances that had brought them together. Michael's phone rang. Ryan answered, listened for a moment, then hung up with an expression of pure dread. That was the field office. We just lost contact with the surveillance team watching Derek's house. What does that mean? It means Derek's people found them. It means our position is probably compromised. And it means we're out of time. Kay checked her weapon again. I'm still going to the meeting. Absolutely not, Michael said. Derek has photos of the twins at school, Michael. Photos taken this week. He knows where they were supposed to be today. But they are here with us. Are they? The question sent ice through Michael's veins. He rushed to the bedroom, Kay and Ryan behind him. The room was empty. Victor and Victoria's stuffed animals were arranged on the bed as if they'd just been playing. The window was open, the fire escape accessible. A note lay on the pillow, 2 p.m. Westfield Academy. Come alone, or explain to Michael why his children won't be coming home. Michael felt the world collapse around him. Derek hadn't just changed the meeting location, he'd taken the twins. While they'd been arguing about betrayal and trust, someone had quietly stolen the most important people in his life. How? He whispered. Kay was already at the window, examining the fire escape. Professional work. They came up the outside, probably while we were watching the press conference. I thought this place was safe. I thought a lot of things, Ryan said grimly. I thought my surveillance team was competent. I thought my safe house was secure. I thought I knew which agents in my office could be trusted. The implications of that last statement sent another chill through Michael. You think someone in the FBI is working with Derek? I think Derek Thompson has enough money to buy anyone he needs. Michael sat heavily on the edge of the bed, holding his children's stuffed animals and trying to process the magnitude of his failure. He'd lost his company, his fortune, his reputation. Now he'd lost his children. The meeting, he said finally. I'm going. Michael, it's a trap. I don't care. Kay moved to stand in front of him, her expression fierce despite the tears still streaking her face. I care. Because losing you won't save them. Then what will? Doing this right. Using Derek's greed and paranoia against him. Making him believe he's won until we can get close enough to destroy him completely. She knelt down, bringing herself to his eye level. I betrayed you, Michael. I took Derek's money and gave him information about your children. But everything I've done since, protecting you, gathering evidence, falling in love with you, that's been real. Michael looked into her eyes and saw the truth there, complicated and painful and undeniable. How do I know the difference? He asked. Because I'm about to risk my life to save children who call me Kay instead of Mama, for a man who has every right to hate me, because it's the right thing to do. She stood and checked her weapon one final time. 2 p.m. Westfield Academy. I'm going to get them back. We're going to get them back, Michael corrected. No. You're staying here with Ryan, where you're relatively safe. Like hell. Kay smiled sadly. Mr. Michael, for 5 years I've been the help. I've been invisible, unimportant, easily dismissed. Today, for the first time, that's going to be Derek Thompson's mistake. She moved toward the door, then paused. When this is over, if we survive, I want to build something real with you. Not employer and employee. Not protector and protected. Partners. Equals. Family. Kay. But first, I have to earn the right to that future. She left before he could respond, taking with her any illusion that Michael had control over his own life. Outside, the city continued its indifferent rhythm. Somewhere in that maze of buildings and traffic, his children were waiting for someone to save them. Someone had betrayed them, maybe Kay, maybe Ryan, maybe people he'd never suspected. In 3 hours, everything would be decided. Michael sat in the empty apartment, holding his children's toys, and realized that loving someone meant trusting them to save you, even when they were the reason you needed saving in the first place. The silence in the apartment felt like a living thing, pressing against Michael's chest until he could barely breathe. Ryan paced the small space like a caged animal, his phone pressed to his ear as he tried to reach contacts who weren't answering. Still nothing from the surveillance team, Ryan reported grimly. Either they are dead or they've been bought. Michael stared at the flash drive Kay had left behind, the evidence that could destroy Derek and save his children, if anyone lived long enough to use it. Tell me about the money laundering operation, he said. Ryan stopped pacing. You sure you want to know? My children are in the hands of people who kill for money. Yes, I want to know. Ryan sat heavily on the couch. Best we can tell, Derek's been running money for the Petrov organization. Russian mob, but they've gone international. They use legitimate businesses to clean drug money, human trafficking profits, arms dealing revenue. And my company was one of those businesses. Your company was the crown jewel. Clean reputation, federal contracts, international holdings. Derek could move $50 million through Laszlo Industries and it looked like normal business operations. Michael felt sick. How long? At least 3 years. Maybe longer. 3 years. For 3 years, Michael had been unknowingly laundering money for killers and criminals while Derek systematically positioned himself to steal everything. The Petrovs don't leave witnesses, Ryan continued. If Derek's lost control of the situation, if they think he's exposed their operation, they'll eliminate everyone connected to it. Including my children. Including your children. Michael's phone, The burner buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Turn on Channel 7 News. Now. Ryan found the remote and switched to the local news station. A reporter stood outside Westfield Academy, the private school where Victor and Victoria had been students until their world imploded. Developing story here where police have discovered what appears to be evidence of a struggle in one of the classrooms. Sources tell us this may be connected to the ongoing manhunt for Michael Laszlo, the billionaire accused of kidnapping his own children during a psychological breakdown. The camera panned across the school playground, then focused on a classroom window. Police cars filled the parking lot, their lights flashing against the afternoon sun. We have unconfirmed reports that a woman matching the description of Laszlo's domestic employee was seen entering the building approximately an hour ago. That woman has not been seen leaving. Michael's blood turned to ice. Kay's been in there for an hour. Ryan was already moving, grabbing weapons and communication gear. The meeting was supposed to be at 2 p.m. It's 3:15 now. Why haven't we heard from her? Because something went wrong. Michael's phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Derek's number. Michael. Derek's voice was smooth, conversational. I assume you're watching the news. Where are my children? Safe. For now. Your friend Kay, however, is proving to be less cooperative than I'd hoped. What do you want? The same thing I've always wanted. Your complete destruction. The difference is, now I have leverage you can't ignore. Michael heard something in the background, a woman's voice, sharp with pain. Kay, don't hurt her. That depends entirely on you. Derek's tone shifted, became businesslike. You have something that belongs to me. A flash drive. I want it back. I don't know what you're talking about. Michael, please. We both know Kay's been collecting evidence for months. We both know she gave you that evidence before she came to our little meeting. Now I need it back. And if I give it to you, then maybe your children live long enough to see their next birthday. The line went dead. Michael stared at the phone, his hand shaking. Derek has Kay, he told Ryan. I heard. Ryan was loading ammunition into multiple weapons. He wants the flash drive. If we give it to him, he'll kill all of us. If we don't give it to him, he'll kill all of us anyway. Michael looked at the flash drive again. Such a small thing to hold so much power. The evidence of Derek's crimes, the proof of the money laundering operation, the only chance they had of bringing down the people who'd stolen his life. There's a third option, he said slowly. What? We use the evidence to force the Petrovs to eliminate Derek themselves. Ryan stared at him. You want to start a war between Derek and the Russian mob. I want to create chaos. Enough chaos for us to get the children and Kay out alive. That's insane. That's desperate. There's a difference. Michael was already moving, plugging the flash drive into Ryan's laptop. Files appeared on the screen, financial records, communication logs, photographs, recordings. Years of meticulous evidence gathering, all pointing to one conclusion. Derek Thompson had been stealing from the Petrov organization. Look at this, Michael said, pointing to a series of wire transfers. Derek's been skimming, taking a percentage off the top of every transaction. Ryan leaned closer. How much? $20 million over 2 years. Jesus. The Petrovs will skin him alive. Not if they don't know about it. Michael began copying specific files to a new folder. But if someone were to anonymously tip them off. Michael, if you do this, there's no going back. You'll be declaring war on everyone. Derek, the Petrovs, maybe law enforcement agencies that don't know who to trust. They already declared war on me. They took my children. His phone rang again. This time it was a video call. Derek's face appeared on the screen, but behind him, Michael could see Kay tied to a chair in what looked like the school's gymnasium. Her face was bruised, her clothes torn. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. Say hello to Daddy, Derek said, turning the camera toward another part of the room. Victor and Victoria sat huddled together in the corner, their hands zip-tied, their faces streaked with tears. They looked terrified but unharmed. Daddy, Victoria called out. We're scared. I know, sweetheart. Daddy's coming to get you. Derek turned the camera back to himself. Actually, Daddy's going to do exactly what I tell him, or you'll never see your children again. I want proof they're okay. They are alive. That's all the proof you get. Derek's expression hardened. You have 30 minutes to bring me that flash drive. Westfield Academy, gymnasium entrance. Come alone, or I start removing fingers. The call ended. Michael stared at the blank screen, his chest tight with rage and terror. I'm going, he said. It's suicide. Maybe. But I won't let him hurt them anymore. Ryan grabbed his arm. Michael, think. Derek's not working alone anymore. The Petrovs have people inside law enforcement, inside federal agencies. Even if you save the kids, where do you run? Who do you trust? I trust Kay. Kay betrayed you. Kay saved me. Michael pulled free from Ryan's grip. Everything she did to protect my children. Even taking Derek's money, she was trying to ensure they'd have some stability when Ilsa took them away. And now she's going to die for it. Michael looked at the screen showing Derek's crimes, then at his phone showing the way to his children. Two paths, both leading to destruction. Ryan, I need you to do something for me. What? If I don't make it out of that school, I need you to send those files to the Petrov organization. All of them. Make sure they know Derek's been stealing from them. Michael. Promise me. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. What about the kids? The kids? Michael's voice broke. The kids will be better off with Kay than they ever were with me or Ilsa. If Kay survives. And if she doesn't? Michael couldn't answer that question. The possibility of losing both his children and the woman he'd just realized he loved was too enormous to contemplate. Then I guess we'll find out if love is stronger than money. He headed toward the door, leaving Ryan with the laptop and the terrible choice of when to destroy Derek Thompson. Outside, the city hummed with indifferent life. People going to work, picking up children from school, living normal lives that didn't include kidnapping and betrayal and the kind of desperate love that made you walk into certain death. Michael had 30 minutes to save his family. He had no plan, no backup, no guarantee that anything he did would matter. But he had something Derek Thompson had never understood. He had finally learned the difference between what he owned and what he loved. The question was whether that knowledge would be enough to save the people who mattered most, or if it would simply make losing them more devastating than he could survive. 28 minutes. The darkest descent had begun. Westfield Academy looked like a war zone. Police barriers surrounded the building, but the officers were keeping their distance. No one wanted to get caught in the crossfire of whatever was happening inside. Media vans lined the street, their satellite dishes reaching toward a sky that had turned the color of old bruises. Michael parked 3 blocks away and approached on foot, the flash drive burning like a coal in his pocket. Every step felt like walking toward his own execution, but the alternative was watching his children die. His phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Petrov files sent. No going back now. 24 minutes ago, the Russian mob had learned that Derek Thompson had stolen $20 million from them. By now, they'd be mobilizing their own response. Michael had started a timer on a bomb he couldn't control. The gymnasium entrance was around the back of the school, accessible through a service road that kept it hidden from the media circus out front. Michael approached carefully, every shadow potentially hiding a sniper, every corner potentially concealing an ambush. The door was propped open. Someone wanted him to enter. Inside, the gymnasium was eerily quiet. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through high windows, creating patterns of light and shadow across the polished floor. The space smelled like childhood, rubber mats and disinfectant and the lingering sweat of countless basketball games. Daddy! Victor's voice echoed from the far end of the gym. Michael saw them, his children tied to chairs near the basketball hoop, Kay slumped in a chair between them. Even from a distance, he could see the blood on her face, the unnatural angle of her left arm. Derek emerged from behind the bleachers, no longer the polished businessman from the morning's press conference. His suit was wrinkled, his tie askew. Most importantly, he wasn't alone. 4 men in tactical gear flanked him, automatic weapons visible. Michael, Derek called out, his voice echoing in the vast space. Right on time. Let them go. Show me the drive first. Michael pulled the flash drive from his pocket and held it up. Hey, now release my family. Derek laughed, but it sounded strained. Your family? Michael, do you understand what you've done? What you've cost me? I know you've been stealing from the Petrovs. Derek's face went pale. What did you say? $20 million, Derek. Skimmed off the top over 2 years. Did you really think they wouldn't notice eventually? You son of a bitch. Derek's composure cracked completely. You sent them the files. I sent them the truth. The truth. Derek's voice rose to a shout. The truth is that I built an empire while you played house with your children. The truth is that I made us both rich while you worried about bedtime stories and soccer games. Michael started walking toward his children, slowly, hands visible. The truth is that you destroyed everything because you couldn't stand that I had something you didn't. What could you possibly have that I wanted? A family that loved you. The words hit Derek like a physical blow. For a moment, his mask slipped completely, and Michael saw the desperate, lonely man underneath. Derek had stolen Michael's company, his money, his wife. But he'd never had what Michael had taken for granted. Children who ran to him with their problems, who trusted him to keep them safe. It doesn't matter now, Derek said, his voice returning to its deadly calm. In about 10 minutes, this place is going to be crawling with Petrov soldiers. They'll kill everyone here, you, me, the children, your precious Kay. Unless what? Unless I can give them something they want more than revenge. Derek gestured to one of his men, who produced a laptop. On the screen, Michael could see financial records, not the ones from Kay's flash drive, but something else entirely. Every account, every transaction, every piece of evidence that could connect the Petrov organization to their American operations, Derek explained. 50 gigabytes of data that could destroy their entire network. You're offering to sell out your partners to save yourself. I'm offering to trade information for safe passage. For all of us. Michael looked at his children. Victor was trying to comfort Victoria, whispering something that made her nod bravely. Kay's eyes were open, watching the exchange with the calculating gaze of someone assessing tactical situations even while injured. What do you want from me? Michael asked. I want you to choose. Derek nodded to his men. 2 of them moved toward the children while the other 2 approached Kay. You can save your children, Derek continued, or you can save your girlfriend. But not both. The Petrovs will accept one group as collateral damage if I can give them the other as a gesture of good faith. The gymnasium fell silent except for the sound of Michael's heartbeat thundering in his ears. That's not a choice. That's exactly what it is. Choose, Michael. Your children or your lover. Your blood family or your chosen family. What matters more? Michael felt the world contract to this moment, this impossible decision. He looked at Victor and Victoria, 7 years old and terrified but still trusting their father to save them. Then he looked at Kay, who had sacrificed everything to protect them, who had fallen in love with him despite every reason not to. There's a third option, Kay said suddenly, her voice weak but clear. Kay, don't. Let me finish. She struggled to sit straighter despite her injuries. Derek, you're forgetting something important about the Petrov organization. What's that? They don't negotiate with people who've betrayed them. Ever. Derek's confidence flickered. They'll want their money back. They'll want their money back from a corpse. Kay's smile was bloodstained but fierce. Michael, the files you sent them, they included more than just Derek's theft. Michael felt something cold settle in his stomach. What else was in there? Evidence that Derek's been planning to eliminate the Petrov leadership and take over their American operations himself. Derek went white. That's impossible. Is it? The communications with their rivals in Moscow? The meetings with federal prosecutors about witness protection? The offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands that you thought were hidden? Michael realized what Kay had done. She hadn't just gathered evidence of Derek's crimes. She'd crafted a narrative that painted Derek as the ultimate betrayer, someone planning to destroy the very people he'd been working with. You manipulated the evidence, Derek said. I curated it, Kay corrected. Everything in those files is real. I just made sure the context told the right story. The sound of vehicles arriving outside echoed through the gymnasium. Heavy engines, multiple cars, the kind of convoy that meant serious people with serious weapons. The Petrovs, Derek whispered. Right on schedule, Kay agreed. Derek's men were looking nervous now, their weapons no longer pointed at the prisoners but toward the exits. They'd signed up to intimidate a billionaire and his family, not to face down Russian organized crime. Michael, Derek said desperately, we can still. There is no we, Michael interrupted. There never was. The gymnasium doors burst open. Armed men in dark clothing flooded in, moving with military precision. At their head was a man Michael recognized from the financial files, Alexei Petrov himself, tall and pale with the kind of stillness that suggested violence was always an option. Mr. Thompson, Alexei said in accented English. We need to talk. Derek's bodyguards were disarmed and zip-tied in under 30 seconds. Derek himself stood frozen, his face the color of concrete. There's been a misunderstanding, Derek began. Yes, Alexei agreed. You misunderstood how much we knew about your activities. Michael felt a moment of hope. If the Petrovs were focused on Derek, maybe they'd ignore everyone else. Maybe his family could escape in the chaos. But Alexei turned toward him with the same cold assessment. Mr. Laszlo, you sent us interesting information about your former partner. I thought you should know the truth. Truth is perspective. Your truth says Derek Thompson stole from us. Derek Thompson's truth says you've been planning to expose our operations to federal authorities. Michael's blood turned to ice. That's not true. Perhaps. But Derek Thompson has offered us something more valuable than truth. Alexei gestured to his men, who began untying the children and Kay. For a moment, Michael thought they were being freed. Then he realized they were being moved, consolidated into a group that could be more easily controlled. What's he offered you? Michael asked. Complete information about our American operations. Financial records that could destroy us if they fell into the wrong hands. In exchange, he wants safe passage and a clean slate. And you're going to give it to him. Alexei smiled, and Michael understood why people feared him. We're going to give him exactly what he deserves. The sound of sirens was getting closer. Federal agents, local police, maybe the National Guard. The situation was spiraling beyond anyone's control. We need to leave, one of Alexei's men reported. FBI is setting up a perimeter. Time for final decisions, Alexei announced. Derek Thompson, you have betrayed partners who trusted you. In our organization, this has consequences. He pulled out a pistol and shot Derek in the chest. Derek crumpled to the floor, his eyes wide with shock and betrayal. He tried to speak but only managed to cough up blood. Michael instinctively stepped toward his children, but Alexei's men blocked his path. Mr. Laszlo, your situation is more complex. You have information that could damage us. You have children who could testify about what they've seen. You have a woman who has gathered evidence against multiple criminal organizations. We don't want any trouble with you. We just want to disappear. Disappearing is not an option. You know too much. Kay stepped forward, moving carefully due to her injuries but with unmistakable determination. Mr. Petrov, there's something you should consider. What? Michael Laszlo is about to become the most wanted man in America. Every law enforcement agency in the country will be looking for him. If he disappears or dies, that attention will intensify. Federal investigators will tear apart every aspect of his life, including his business relationships. Your point? My point is that keeping him alive in public is your best protection. Let him be the face of this scandal. Let him absorb all the attention while your operations fade into the background. Alexei studied Kay with new interest. You think strategically. I think practically. And what about you? What prevents you from exposing our operations later? Kay looked at Michael, then at the children, then back at Alexei. I want to make a deal. Michael felt his heart stop. Kay, no. A trade, she continued. My life for theirs. Let Michael and the children disappear completely. Give them new identities, new lives where they'll never be a threat to you. In exchange, you get me, someone who knows enough about your operations to be valuable, but who'll be too dead to testify. No, Michael said firmly. Absolutely not. It's not your choice, Kay replied gently. Alexei seemed genuinely intrigued. Why would you sacrifice yourself for them? Because that's what family does. The sirens were getting louder. Outside, Michael could hear loudspeakers, federal agents demanding surrender, offering negotiation. Decide quickly, Alexei said. In 60 seconds, this building will be surrounded. Michael looked at Kay, who was watching him with an expression of absolute calm. She'd made her choice. She was offering her life for his children's freedom. There has to be another way, he said desperately. There is, Kay agreed. You can all die together. But that doesn't save anyone. Alexei raised his weapon. 30 seconds. Michael felt the weight of the impossible choice crushing down on him. Accept Kay's sacrifice and live with the knowledge that the woman he loved died to save his children. Refuse it and watch everyone he cared about die together. Kay, he whispered. Take care of them, she whispered back. Love them enough for both of us. The gymnasium lights flickered as federal agents began cutting the power to the building. Time, Alexei announced. Michael closed his eyes and made the choice that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Yes, he said. I accept the deal. The sound of his own voice agreeing to Kay's death was the last thing he heard before the world exploded into chaos. The explosion wasn't federal agents breaching the building. It was Ryan Webb and a tactical team rappelling through the gymnasium's skylights as smoke grenades detonated throughout the space. The Petrov soldiers, caught completely off guard, found themselves surrounded by federal agents who'd been planning this operation for months. FBI, drop your weapons. The chaos was immediate and total. Automatic gunfire erupted as the Petrovs tried to fight their way out. Michael threw himself over his children, shielding them from the crossfire while his mind struggled to process what was happening. Through the smoke and noise, he saw Kay, not cowering or playing the helpless victim, but moving with deadly precision. The zip ties around her wrists fell away, apparently having been loosened long before. The injuries on her face, Michael realized with shock, looked far worse than they actually were. "Kay!" he shouted over the gunfire. She turned toward him, and her expression was calm, controlled, professional. This wasn't a woman about to die for love. This was an FBI agent executing a long-planned operation. "Stay down," she ordered, her voice carrying absolute authority. Alexei Petrov was trying to retreat toward a side exit, but Ryan Webb stepped into his path, weapon drawn. "Going somewhere, Alexei." "Federal agent," Alexei spat. "You have no jurisdiction here." "Actually, I have all the jurisdiction I need." Ryan smiled grimly. "This is a joint task force operation. 2 years in the planning." "That depends on you," she said. "The operation is over. Derek and the Petrovs are finished. But my feelings for you and the children, those aren't going anywhere. You lied to me for 5 years. I protected you for 5 years. It's the same thing." "No," Kay said firmly. "It's not. Lying would have been easier. Protecting you meant caring about you, worrying about you, falling in love with you despite every professional instinct telling me not to." Victor ran to Michael and wrapped his arms around his father's legs. "Daddy, can Kay come home with us?" "I don't know, son." "She saved us," Victoria added, taking Kay's hand. "Heroes are supposed to get happy endings." Michael looked at his children, really looked at them. They weren't traumatized by the day's events. They were excited, proud of their Kay for being a real-life superhero. They trusted her completely, despite learning she'd been keeping enormous secrets. Maybe children understood something about love that adults forgot. Maybe love wasn't about perfect honesty. Maybe it was about perfect commitment. "The job offer stands," Ryan said quietly. "Joint Task Force Operations. You two make a good team." "What job offer?" Michael asked. Kay smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her all day. "Financial crimes investigation. Turns out having a former billionaire on the team opens doors that FBI badges can't." "You want me to become a federal agent?" "I want you to become my partner," Kay said. "In every sense of the word." Michael felt something shift inside him, the same transformation he'd been experiencing over the past few days, but deeper now. For 20 years, he'd built his identity around accumulating wealth and power. Now he had the chance to build it around something else entirely. "What about the children?" "What about them?" Kay asked. "They already think I'm the coolest person in the world. They'll probably love having parents who catch bad guys for a living." "Parents?" Kay blushed, the first time he'd seen her look genuinely flustered. "I mean, if you want, eventually." Michael stepped closer to her, close enough to see the hope and fear warring in her eyes. "Kay Miller, 5 years ago you walked into my house as my employee. Today you've saved my life, my children's lives, and my future. Tomorrow. Tomorrow I want to wake up and figure out how to be worthy of you." Kay's smile was radiant. "Mr. Michael, you've been worthy all along. You just needed to figure out what actually mattered." She gestured around the gymnasium, where federal agents were completing their work, where justice was being served, where a corrupt empire had finally fallen. "Love matters. Family matters. Protecting people who can't protect themselves matters. Everything else, money, status, power, those are just tools. The question is what you use them for." Michael pulled her close, careful of her injuries but needing to feel her reality, her warmth, her presence in his life. "I love you," he said simply. "I love you too," she replied. "Both of you," she added, looking at the twins. "All of you. My family." Outside, the media was going crazy with the story of the federal raid that had taken down a major criminal organization. Inside, a man who'd lost everything discovered he'd actually gained the only things that mattered. Derek Thompson's empire was finished. Michael Laszlo's real life was just beginning. And sometimes, If you were very lucky, the woman who saved you turned out to be the woman you were meant to spend forever loving. The operation was complete. The family was just getting started. 6 months later, Michael stood in the kitchen of their new house. Not a mansion, just a 4-bedroom home in a neighborhood where children rode bikes on sidewalks and neighbors knew each other's names. The morning sun streamed through ordinary windows as he made pancakes while Kay packed lunch boxes for the twins. The domesticity of it still caught him off guard sometimes. Kay Miller Laszlo, FBI special agent, arguing with 7-year-olds about whether fruit snacks counted as a vegetable. Victor and Victoria, who now bragged to their classmates that their stepmom caught real bad guys, debating the relative merits of peanut butter versus ham sandwiches. Daddy, Kay says we can't have ice cream for breakfast, Victoria announced solemnly. Kay is right, Michael said, flipping pancakes with the kind of casual expertise that would have astonished his former self. But maybe we can negotiate for ice cream after dinner. I like this family, Victor declared. We get to vote on things. They did vote on things now. Where to go on vacation. What movie to watch on Friday nights. Whether to adopt the stray cat that had been hanging around their backyard. Democracy in action, guided by love instead of authority. Kay's phone buzzed with a work notification. She glanced at it, then at Michael. New case, he asked. International art theft ring. Treasury thinks they are using legitimate auction houses to launder money from artifact smuggling. Sounds like our kind of challenge. Their partnership had surprised everyone, including themselves. Michael's business insights combined with Kay's investigative expertise had already closed 3 major financial crimes cases. More importantly, they'd learned to trust each other completely, in the field and at home. When do we leave? Michael asked. We don't leave anywhere for 2 weeks. Victor has his school play, remember? Pirates of Penzance, Michael confirmed. Wouldn't miss it. The old Michael would have missed it. Would have sent flowers and an expensive gift to compensate for his absence. This Michael had spent 3 weekends helping Victor practice his lines and building a cardboard ship for the stage. Kay moved to stand beside him at the stove, her presence still sending warmth through his chest even after months of marriage. Any regrets? She asked quietly. It was a question she'd started asking during their first month together, when the magnitude of the changes in their lives had seemed overwhelming. Michael had lost his billionaire status. Their combined federal salaries were comfortable but modest compared to his former wealth. He'd lost his corporate empire, his social position, his identity as a titan of industry. Just one, he said, as he always did. What's that? I regret that it took me so long to notice what was right in front of me. Kay smiled and kissed his cheek. Good answer. The twins finished breakfast and grabbed their backpacks. Public school now, not private academy. They rode the bus instead of being driven by a chauffeur. They had assigned chores and allowances they had to earn. They also had parents who were present, engaged, and madly in love with each other. Bus is coming. Victor called from the front window. The routine of seeing them off still felt precious. Hugs, reminders about homework, promises about after-school activities. Normal parental chaos that Michael had missed entirely during their first 7 years of life. Love you, Daddy, Victoria said, wrapping her arms around his waist. Love you, K-Mom, Victor added, using the nickname he'd invented for their unusual family structure. Love you both more than all the stars, Kay replied, their established response. After the children left, the house settled into the quiet rhythm of 2 adults preparing for their day. Kay reviewed case files while Michael checked financial reports. Partners in every sense, building something together that neither could have created alone. Michael, Kay said suddenly. Look at this. She held up a newspaper, an actual physical newspaper, something she'd started buying because she missed the tactile experience of reading news. The headline read, Former business partner of billionaire Michael Laszlo dies in federal prison. Derek Thompson's photo stared back at them. According to the article, he'd suffered a heart attack while serving his 30-year sentence for money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy charges. He was 43 years old. How do you feel? Kay asked gently. Michael studied Derek's face, the man who'd been his best friend, his partner, his destroyer. For years, Derek had been consumed by envy and greed, unable to see that the things he'd stolen couldn't actually be possessed. Sad, Michael said finally. Not for Derek, but for the friendship we could have had if he'd chosen differently. Do you think he ever understood what he'd lost? I think he died still believing that money was the only thing worth having. Kay folded the newspaper and set it aside. The kids don't need to see this. No, they don't. But Michael found himself thinking about Derek as they drove to work. The federal building was a 15-minute commute from their house, another adjustment from his former life, where he'd been helicoptered from his estate to his downtown office. Their shared workspace was efficient rather than luxurious. No marble floors or floor-to-ceiling windows. Just functional desks, reliable computers, and the satisfaction of work that mattered more than profit margins. Agent Laszlo, their supervisor, called out as they arrived. Agent Miller Laszlo. Conference room in 5 minutes. We have a new case. Michael smiled at the title. Agent Laszlo. It had taken him 6 months of training and testing to earn the designation, but he'd never been prouder of any achievement. The new case involved a cryptocurrency scheme targeting elderly investors, exactly the kind of financial crime that combined his business expertise with Kay's investigative skills. As they reviewed the files, Michael felt the familiar excitement of a puzzle worth solving. This is going to take us to Miami, Kay noted. Victor's play is next Thursday. We'll be back by Tuesday. Plenty of time for final rehearsals. It was the kind of planning that defined their life now, work that mattered, balanced with family that came first. They'd learned to build success around love instead of the other way around. That evening, Michael sat on the back porch watching Kay help the twins with homework while the promised stray cat wound around his ankles. The scene was perfectly ordinary and absolutely extraordinary. His phone rang, not the burner phones and emergency contacts of 6 months ago, but his regular cell phone with family photos on the lock screen. Michael Laszlo. Mr. Laszlo, this is Jennifer Harris. Robert Harris's daughter. Michael's breath caught. Robert Harris, the accountant who'd tried to warn him about Derek's activities. The man who'd disappeared and was later found murdered. Jennifer, I'm so sorry about your father. Thank you. I'm calling because I have something that belonged to him. Something he wanted you to have if anything ever happened to him. What is it? A letter. And some financial documents that he said would help you understand why Derek Thompson chose you as his target. Michael felt Kay's attention focus on him from across the yard. After 6 months of partnership, she could read his expressions from a distance. Can you tell me what the letter says? It says my father investigated your background before Derek recruited him. He discovered that you weren't just successful, you were genuinely good. You treated employees fairly, you gave to charity anonymously, you loved your children even when you didn't know how to show it properly. Jennifer's voice became emotional. My father said Derek specifically chose to destroy you because your goodness made him feel inadequate. It was never about money. It was about destroying someone who had the kind of character Derek knew he'd never possess. Michael closed his eyes, feeling the weight of Robert Harris's sacrifice, the senselessness of a good man's death. Thank you for telling me. There's more. The documents show that Derek had been planning to frame you for years. Even before the money laundering operation. He'd been documenting your daily routines, your family patterns, your business decisions. He was obsessed with you. After Jennifer hung up, Michael sat in the gathering darkness processing this final revelation. Derek hadn't just betrayed him. Derek had systematically planned his destruction as an act of personal vendetta. Kay appeared beside him, sliding into the porch swing. That sounded heavy. Michael told her about Jennifer's call, about Robert Harris's final message. When he finished, Kay was quiet for a long time. Do you know what this means? She finally said. That Derek was sicker than we realized. That you were worth destroying everything for. Derek Thompson gave up his freedom, his life, his future, all for the chance to hurt someone whose character made him feel small. Kay took his hand. Michael, that's not a tragedy. That's a testament to who you are. Through the kitchen window, they could see Victor and Victoria at the table, heads bent over math worksheets, occasionally asking each other for help. The cat had claimed the spot between them, purring loudly enough to be heard through the glass. Look at them, Kay said softly. Happy, secure, loved. Derek Thompson spent years plotting to destroy your family, and instead he gave you the chance to build a real one. Michael understood what she meant. The old family, him working constantly, Ilsa pursuing her affairs, the children raised by nannies and tutors, had been successful but hollow. This family, forged through crisis and built on choice rather than circumstance, was infinitely stronger. Do you think they'll be okay? He asked. With everything they've been through. I think they'll be extraordinary, Kay said. They've learned that families protect each other, that love requires action, not just feelings. They've seen their father lose everything and rebuild something better. And they've seen their stepmother risk her life to save strangers. They've seen what it looks like when people choose to fight for justice instead of just accepting injustice. Michael pulled Kay closer, breathing in the scent of her shampoo mixed with the evening air. 6 months ago, he'd been a billionaire who owned everything and valued nothing. Tonight, he was a federal agent with a mortgage and a family who chose him every day. Kay. Yes. Thank you. For what? For seeing who I could become before I knew it myself. She turned in his arms, her face illuminated by the light spilling from the kitchen where their children were growing up surrounded by love and security. Michael Laszlo, you were always exactly who you were meant to be. You just needed the right family to help you remember. Inside, Victor called out that he'd finished his homework. Victoria announced that the cat was definitely staying because it had chosen them. Normal evening chaos in a normal house where extraordinary people were building an extraordinary life. Michael stood and offered Kay his hand. Ready to go inside. Ready for whatever comes next, she replied. As they walked toward the light and laughter of their home, Michael reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Derek Thompson had tried to destroy him and instead had given him everything worth having. The betrayal that was meant to end his life had actually begun it. Tomorrow they would catch criminals who preyed on innocent people. Tonight they would help with homework and argue about bedtime stories and fall asleep grateful for second chances and the courage to take them. The billionaire who had lost everything was gone forever. The man who had found everything that mattered was just getting started. And sometimes, if you were brave enough to let love transform you completely, losing everything you thought you wanted was the only way to discover everything you actually needed. The future stretched ahead of them, full of cases to solve, children to raise, and love to build one ordinary, extraordinary day at a time. What did this story teach you about the difference between what we own and what we love? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world.